Just stunned waiting. You're not wrong. I'm basically like Willard. I was gonna wait for a couple people to get in. Won't be too bad. Just a couple more. We don't have big lives because I don't announce them. So there never is a chance for people to jump in. But basically, what we're going to be covering today is I got some talking points. Obviously, there's a lot of questions on where we were 2024, and forgive the scenery. Hotel is what it is. I mean, 9 to 5 job throughout the week is what it is. But anyway, what went on with the channel for 2024? Because there was a super long hiatus. We went from uploading 2, 3 videos a week sometimes, mostly one video a week and a short a day, whatever, to cold turkey, basically until quite recently. And another big one is where the mega cab is, that kind of stuff. Why did you sell the mega cab? Exactly. I'm going to get into that one. I see that one quite a lot. It is what it is. But I'll jump into that one real quick. But how's it going, Ricky? Nice to see you again. Always nice. As you said before, I should really schedule these things, but it is what it is. And how much did you sell the mega cab for? That's my second talking point. I'll get right into it. Cheers. All right, I think there's enough here at the warrant starting. Yeah. Anyone who comes in, they'll have to watch the rest of it if they want to know what's going on. But either way, so where have we been 2024? Because if you look, the last video that we uploaded until basically a long hiatus was the May video on the sponsored exhaust build, I believe, for the 2016 F-150. We have an aluminum body F-150 now. It's kind of not channel associated, but if, I can get some videos going on that, I will. It's whatever. Some of you guys might be from the other video that I talked about corrosion and rust. Again, YouTube, you like to play with names and numbers and titles and a whole bunch of stuff. But either way, we went front to back on the truck and just talked about it. A lot of guys came from that. So if you're here because you saw the new truck video, we mostly deal in old trucks here. I want to see a build on a Cummins swapped Ford. Tons of them out there. Absolutely tons of them. A little bit out of my price range is what it is. But might be down the line. 24 valve and 12 valves are pretty darn slick. But anyway, where were we from basically May to now? As you guys know, or a lot of you guys know, my dad died last year in August, basically. So if you notice, we took about a month hiatus when that happened, obviously the beginning of the event. And then after that, it was pretty much full tilt on a couple builds. Sorry if my swaying gets to some of you guys. I'll stop swaying as soon as I stop talking about this one subject. It's just a little bit of a touchy thing. We want to get rid of it. Or, you know what I mean. We want to move on to the other things, not just dwell on this. But I feel like I owe you guys an explanation of where we've been. So I just never took a hiatus. I worked basically on the Trans Am, finished that up, and then it was straight into the Mega Cab build basically up until December. We had that pretty much done around Christmas time. And then the New Year's hit, and we ended up having to, out of life circumstance, we ended up getting an aluminum bodied 2016 F-150. Again, not channel related, but what the drawback of that was is now driving that 16 Ford, we ended up not being an Old Blue because it was mostly a channel related vehicle. Our daily driver was no longer that. So a lot of the daily content started to kind of dwindle a little bit on that truck. But what ended up happening, before I get too much into what happened to Old Blue, what ended up happening is it's almost like one day you just kind of wake up and it's like, I need a break. Haven't really had one since the traumatic event, basically. And moving forward, I felt like mental space, I wasn't in the best of realm, so say. So like working on things and just dealing with problems on day-to-day life and stuff, there was a little bit of a drag on those. I wanted to kind of take a step back and just not so much enjoy the summer because I quite like what I do, quite like filming. It was actually quite hard to stay away from projects, but mostly just take a step back and explore some other things, get closer with my fiance, uh, do more events with her, do more events with family and friends, that kind of stuff. So I just kind of focused more on that and just let the channel sit to the side, not really doing anything with it, just let it sit. And I wanted to come back. I wanted to take time off and then come back with a very clear focus on how we wanted the channel to progress and how we wanted the channel to basically work from when day one when we started. Yeah, family first, like you're saying. Day one from when we came back to hit the ground running, so to speak. So that's what we ended up doing. I didn't really have a set goal on when to come back. I was kind of thinking end of September-ish. We're at that point now, quite literally the last day of September. But what really kind of lit a fire under my butt is when Peg came down. I knew he was coming down for a couple months, basically, but I didn't know it was going to be that area, and it kind of left. I wish I had things more prepared. I wish the channel, I got back into it a little bit earlier, so there was more stuff that we could film when he got down here, but it's just the nature of the beast. There wasn't a lot going on at Hi-Ho Stable Garage when he came. Peg is pretty awesome. He's as cool as he is in video. And one thing I'm gonna have to tell you guys right now, genuine, very genuine. You get a lot of people that on the internet, they're not at all the same person. Peg is very much through and through the exact same person that you guys see him online. It's awesome. Not gonna lie. Anyone who likes his videos would definitely like him in person. It's the exact same fella. it's yeah. Well, we can talk more about Peg later on, but I just want to finish this point. Is coming back. I'm quite happy to come back, but I'm also quite happy that I took the time, had the good mental space. It's more important, I think, than a lot of people realize, especially men in general. A lot of fellas like to keep their emotions and what they're feeling and all that stuff kind of bottled up inside them, and we kind of get lost in the we're too rough and tough type way. But it sounds cheesy, but it's good to step back and just evaluate your life and your personality and everything. Things change and mental break is a good thing. 100%. Yeah. So that's pretty much where we were. There wasn't anything drastic like what happened the first time when my dad died, and I went cold turkey for a month, and then we had the update video, and then I yada yada yada, we kind of got back into it. This was more so just me taking a step back voluntarily and just changing my lifestyle a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit in the short term, just to see how much stuff I actually liked doing, what needed to change, and so on and so forth. Now we're here. Obviously, the YouTube was something I quite enjoyed, and as I said, it was quite hard for me not to wrench on my old junk and all that stuff. But it is what it is. So we're back now, and are we back to one video a week or one short a day? Shorts are pretty easy. Honestly, I could likely still do one short a day, but we're trying to focus more so on quality versus quantity. But that's something I can get into just a little bit down the road in this life. Next question is, where's the Mega Cab? That's a big one, because the Mega Cab, if you guys didn't notice, I'll give you a quick rundown on what the Mega Cab was. Mega Cab was built on the old Super Cab, or what? Yes, old Super Cab blue Ford that we used to have. It was a 1985-ish. There's a lot of pieces on that truck that weren't the right year, but 1985-ish, factory four-wheel drive, factory diesel, factory, I believe it was a 208 or a 205 transfer case, whatever the gear-to-gear one is, cast iron, 10 and a quarter rear, and it had the twin I-beam Dana 50 up at the front. It was just a nice truck. It was an 8-foot bed, that kind of stuff. We had that. I had that personally since I was in college, all the way up until we did the Mega Cab build, where we took it as a donor chassis, and we used some of the sections of my grandfather's truck. There wasn't a whole lot left, obviously, if you guys watch that series. Then that one is very well done, in my opinion, for the channel. And again, that's something I want to kind of get into down the road. But it was the start of the very well done videos, to the point, all that stuff. So if you guys haven't seen that, you guys will likely enjoy it. But either way, we used parts of that truck, parts of my donor chassis, and then some other trucks in between to make a full crew cab 4-door with four factory front doors that were not shortened or anything. So like it, hate it, whatever. A lot of guys, I built it because it was really expensive to get a factory 4-door around my area. But also the amount of room in that truck was unreal. It was crazy. You had like an extra 1.5 foot compared to a regular crew cab, because it used 4 full-size front doors. Without doing body work, it had 4 mirrors, if you can picture that a little bit better. It's pretty cool. And then a full 8-foot bed. So it was 23.5 feet long, bumper to bumper, just the truck. It was a big unit. And then we made it dually, a whole bunch of stuff. So there was quite a lot of things that we did to it, and it was almost the channel staple vehicle, I guess you could say, for quite a long time. Again, Old Blue was kind of the channel staple vehicle, and then a lot of people thought that the Mega Cab was going to be. But if you look at how long we had the Mega Cab, Old Blue was epic, and she's definitely one of a kind. Yeah, I haven't found another one. I haven't really looked for another one. I think my 80s, I'll get into that in a little bit, but either way, I haven't found another one like Super Crew factory skid plate, mind you, too. It was 3/16 skid plates all underneath the truck, underneath the fuel tanks. That was pretty awesome. A lot of factory 4-wheel drive options were on that truck. It was just a nice old work truck. Couldn't get any better than that. Anyway, so we had Old Blue done in December, and we sold it in... Oh, geez. Gotta think here. I think we sold it in May. I want to say we sold it in May. Now, so that is January, February, March, April, May. 5 months of Mega Cab. So that Mega Cab, it's seen under my belt 1,000 kilometers. It wasn't quite a lot. For 5 months, for the type of driving I usually do, 1,000 kilometers isn't quite a lot. For other people, it might be a lot. But either way, we didn't have a lot of kilometers for me on that truck within 5 months. We just weren't driving it a lot. And again, it's also due because the channel was in a dormant type phase. Even though our last video was in May, if you look, we didn't do a lot of videos before that, from basically the beginning or the end of January to now. There wasn't a lot of stuff going on the channel, really. So that truck just kind of sat, and I didn't know what I was going to do with the channel at the time. And due to life circumstances, I can get into that maybe in a different live. Well, I plan on doing a couple of these because I'm on the road a lot. So it's not a bad time to touch base and tell you guys what's exactly going on with the YouTube channel and a whole bunch of stuff for the people that like this sort of thing. I don't mind talking to you guys face to face, sort of, or at least it's closer we're going to get to it. But anyway, the Mega Cab, we sold that off for a couple reasons. One, financially, again, always funding other projects. This is how it is. B, we weren't driving it a lot, and I'm not one of those type of guys that likes to see things sit, especially when they're in a finished state. It just pained me a lot to see the truck just sitting, and I didn't know, again, Peg kind of lit a fire under my butt a little bit. I'm just going to have a drink there real quick. Peg kind of lit a fire under my butt just a little bit and got me back into it. Again, about a month sooner than I thought I was going to in my head. That's kind of when I was, that's when we're kind of jumping back into it. So But at the time in May, I didn't really know when I was going to be back. So I was just kind of looking at the truck sitting in the grass or in the gravel, whatever. And I wanted to drive it, but I didn't really have the fire under me to do it. And it just pained me to see it sitting in that state. And there was a lot of interest in the truck, obviously, because it's very much one of a kind. It'd take a lot of manpower and a lot of man hours and a lot of mistakes and a lot of luck and a lot of willpower, basically, to make that, especially for a non-body man like myself, just someone tinkering around in a shop or a home barn or a shed or whatever, even in a driveway. You could have built that truck in a driveway if you wanted to. If you didn't paint it in November too, it likely would have turned out of a better sheen on it. But it is what it is. Anyway, we sold that truck for a couple reasons. Again, financial. One, I didn't want to sit, but B, I just didn't know when we were going to come back to the channel. And I guess D, a lot of fellows wanted it. So when you're getting dangled a piece of cheese in front of your face, it's hard not to take a bite. So where did the truck go? I'm not going to name any names, but it went to a fella. It's pretty cool. He watched literally from day one of the Mega Cab build to the end. He knew exactly what he was getting, loved it to pieces, and he just had to have it. So he drove all the way, it was like 4 hours to come see the truck, saw it, or sorry, his buddy drove for him, saw it, loved it. They talked over the phone. We settled on a price, and away she went down the road away. And that's the last time I saw it. I got a couple updates on it throughout the last few months. He was going to use it to pull horses. That's pretty darn sweet. His horse trailer on the back, I don't know how that panned out. I'm pretty sure it likely would have been completely fine. It's a good old truck. But he was going to use it for work like basically I was going to. I was hauling scrap. I was hauling lumber, random stuff for the channel with it. Hauling vehicles, tractors, all that kind of stuff. He was going to do the same, just personal, horses, tractors, all that stuff. So I'm happy. I miss it 100%. I do, especially now that I'm back to the channel. We don't have a work truck, and that is a very, very large shoe to fill because you're not going to use the new truck's fine. You get into it and it drives good and all that stuff, but I'm not going to load the back with a bunch of scrap. It's just, you can do it, but that aluminum bed's not going to survive. It's just how it is. Unfortunate truth. It is what it is. The old trucks are better for that kind of stuff 100% than the new stuff. You just don't want to destroy it, I guess. You big financial whatever. You guys know what I mean. A lot of you guys drive newer vehicles too, so it is what it is. Anyway, big shoes that truck had filled. Now it's gone. So what are we left with? So maybe I'll hold off on that point because that was a good segue to another one, but I kind of want to talk about another thing. Why is the mullet? The mullet, I have a lot of questions on that a lot because we used to never have one, and now it's growing quite crazy. It's almost full blown. I only want it to go down to the shoulders, so we got about another inch, I would say, of total length. As you guys can see, it's coming along pretty good. I've been growing it basically since December. It might even been November. I would have to backdate and see how long those videos were. We're building it as an homage to my dad. My dad, when he was about my age, when he met my mom, he had kind of the similar getup. He had the mullet, he had the mustache, except his was a handlebar mustache. Had the two pieces that kind of went down to here. I'm not a handlebar guy, so this is about as close as I'm going to get. So that's why the mustache is here. That's why the mullet was here. Again, it's a homage to my dad. My plan was once it gets down to the bottom, I would cut it, but I'm quite enjoying it, and it seems to fit my personality quite a lot. Sorry again. But that's the reason the wacky hair is there. And sometimes it's really poofy in videos, and sometimes it's all over the place. It is what it is. I'm normally a hat guy, but yeah. I hope that covers the mullet. I'm not going to make a video specifically on it. Some people wanted to see that. I don't know. Anyway, so that will segue pretty good before the mullet. I was saying, what are we going to have for a vehicle to haul scrap steel? What are we going to have for a vehicle to haul lumber, do work on the property, all that stuff? In comes Zip Ties and Buys Plies with his cross-country Ford. Anyway, we were talking and he was showing me videos of the Ford in Alberta when he was loading it with rocks and all that stuff, and saying, oh yeah, it's going to be awesome when you get this down here. You'll find something, you can scrap it, you can sell it, you can do whatever you want to it. And I told him, it's like, I don't want to scrap it. It has too much history in it, but I also have no idea what I'm going to use it for. Because the thing with Alberta and New Brunswick, again, we're basically worlds apart. If this is Alberta, this is New Brunswick, and all in between me, metric-wise, is like 5,200 kilometers. Mile-wise, I'm going to say is around 3,000 plus some. It's quite a lot from one end to Canada to the other. I likely got those numbers completely wrong. Either way, you guys know what I mean. It's just as far as you can pretty much get, other than like Newfoundland and some tips of Nova Scotia and stuff. It's a long distance. So the way of life is completely different. Here we have in New Brunswick, motor vehicle inspections. They'll fail a vehicle for a hole. Works good driving Trans Am with a mullet. 100%. Trans Am's never going anywhere. It's my dad's old car. We fixed it up. We were hoping to drive my dad in it. Never panned out, is what it is. One of life's biggest regrets was not getting to that project way sooner and just putting all the other things on hold. But it is what it is. But either way, Trans Am's not going anywhere. I'm just not around as much as I would like to putt around in it. But don't worry, that's in safekeeping. It's in storage. It's not going anywhere. We're gonna hopefully keep building into it and making it into the vehicle that my dad likely would have wanted it and envisioned it and all that stuff. The motor is actually still sitting on the shop floor. We never even tore into it yet on what happened to it after we did the rebuild. I kind of think one of the bearing caps piled up because it was sort of sketchy. Not gonna lie, we had to do some welding on the bearing cap on the rear main. Someone just messaged something. I didn't even get to see it. I don't even know how to see comments on this. Sorry if I look stunned while I'm doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. So hold on, bear in mind. What's this do? Nope, that does not do that, what I wanted. I don't know how to see the comments, fellas. Once they're gone, they're gone. That's the problem. I'm not as tech savvy as I would like to be. So, sucks to say, but the comment that's gone, if you copy paste it and throw it back in, I'll see it real quick. I just don't know how to see the thing again. Anyway, what we were talking about. Are you in a motel? Yeah. Yeah, I do a lot of traveling for work, basically, so I'm in a motel, is what it is. Not the most scenic thing, but it's more the conversation I wanted to have with you guys, so it is what it is. They make these little peace teas in 341 mil, odd size, but anyway, they're pretty good. Trans Am's not going anywhere, never going anywhere. We're going to hopefully get back into why the engine piled up and why it stopped. Two things could have happened, basically, in my opinion. Rope seal could have piled up in the back because it was piling up pretty bad. It was adding a lot of friction to the crank when we ran it. It could have just unlodged from its groove and piled right up and stopped the crank. You wouldn't think a little rope would be able to do that, but if you know like gears and stuff, so pinions and ring and pinions, all that stuff for like differentials. If you don't want a ring and pinion to spin, you just shove a rag in there. It will stop it solid. It's quite an odd thing. But either way, the rope seal is a fibrous material. Might have piled up and stopped it, or it was due to the welding that we had to do on the rear main bearing cap. I never included that portion in the video, but the rear main bearing cap was cracked at the very beginning. So we had to, and it was around where the two bolts were. So we had to weld basically some hardened steel on the edges after drilling it and a whole bunch of stuff. Honestly, I should have got a new main cap and just machined it, but yeah, it's either one of the two things. I'm hoping it's the rope seal, and while we're in there, we'll change the cap, but it is what it is. Either way, it is what it is. So yeah, the Trans Am's not going anywhere. We're going to build into it. Hopefully the 403 Ultimobile does make its way back into there, because you guys know that it still has that, I don't even know what it's called anymore. It's a 4.3, I think. Yeah, I think it's a 4.3 Oldsmobile engine. Pretty small, really. But it works good. So that's where the Trans Am is. You don't have to worry about it. It's not going anywhere. One of the vehicles that I'll never sell, they'll have to pry it from my cold dead hands, basically, are projects you still have other than Peg's old truck. I'll get into that in a second. It's one of my talking points, 100%. So that's not going anywhere. Yeah, I'll get to that one in a second. But we're building the International to fill the role that Old Blue did. Scrap hauler, work truck, that type of stuff. Something that we can work with, and basically we need a work vehicle for the channel. It can be something real cheap that I could just buy, like a little Mazda pickup, or a K-truck would even be kind of neat. Small little grocery getter type little thing. They look like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, they're like those Japanese little tiny trucks. They're almost like a golf cart, really. Kind of cool. They're street legal around here. But that little K, or have a work vehicle of some point. So in comes Peg's truck, and we're just kind of sitting on no real projects starting or ongoing when we come back to the channel. He comes in with that truck, says we can do anything with it, gives us the blessing to crush it into a million pieces if we wanted to, sell it off, whatever. I was looking at it, and because of our MVI, our strict MVI here, we wouldn't be able to make it street legal again. That's in the truck, and does it still run? We'll get into that in just a quick second. I'm building up to it, I swear. Anyway, so that work truck that he brought in its state would have never passed around here. We would have had to basically do an Old Blue 2.0, new firewall, new floor, and about a foot up the vehicle itself. So I call them dog legs, but cab corners for your A, B, and C pillar because of crew cab. And then all the wrap around, and then that whole engine, when he was jumping it and doing all the stuff with it on the dirt mound, ran so hard into the front plate of the bed, it bent the front plate of the bed, I think it's 8 inches into the cab, and then bent the cab and almost busted the rear window to the point the rear window wouldn't even slide. It is what it is. But that cab would have needed as much work or more than the Mega Cab build, believe it or not. Pretty crazy. I didn't want to really get into that again, to tell you the honest truth, because it's quite a couple months that it was a lot of work, and we actually had a little bit more time back then when we were doing the Mega Cab build than we do now, is what it is. So, but I didn't want to just sit on that truck because I don't think that's fair, and I also wanted to get into another project. So I was doing some thinking, and we had the International project that we were sitting on for, geez, when did we get that thing? 3.5 years ago? Something like that? 4 years ago? It's one of the very first videos on the channel where we go and buy it from some fella in Quebec. It's all documented technically. It's pretty cool. But we got that truck, and we've just been building it, and then we would stop at about, we seem to stop at about 70% done, completion, and then we alter the project to some point. So at the very beginning, if you guys remember, I'll give a quick rundown. That project was supposed to be on a Mazda B2200 pickup frame. I think it might have been a 2600, but B2200 pickup frame, because it was narrow and all that stuff, and it was supposed to be a small little shop truck, runner type deal. That fell through as soon as the frame on the Mazda was deemed to be unfit for anything. Completely rotten, completely bad, no good at all. So we decided to scrap the Mazda. Off he went to Kingdom Come. Someone else bought him. Someone else could deal with that project. So then we needed a new donor chassis, and we had the 2003 F-150 at a 5.4 Triton 2-valve in it, automatic transmission, but it was 4-wheel drive, that kind of stuff. It was a good chassis. It ran good. It worked good. No problems. Well, we thought, you know what? What would be cool if we took the International cab, the International body, because that's how we bought it. It wasn't a complete truck. If it was a complete truck, we would have just swapped parts into it instead of doing what we did. It was just body parts and a title, basically. So we grafted that body onto the 2003 F-150 chassis, made a custom rear back half, all that stuff. Learned a lot of what not to do. Learned a lot of things that I liked, but basically just kind of excelled our welding skills and our fabrication skills and learned a lot of down the way. But then, say about halfway through, we were at the point that the body work was basically done fabrication wise. So we only had the back fenders and the running boards technically left. The bed was completely done, all that stuff. But it was kind of coming to the point that we were just wrapping up the mega cab build and we needed something to kind of sink our teeth into. And I didn't really want another race vehicle because we had the Trans Am already. We still have the RX-7, the 5-liter RX-7, sitting at the back of the shop like a little gargoyle. That my buddy's car, we swapped that engine into it on the channel, a whole bunch of stuff. Pretty cool. Way down the road, or a few years ago, what I'm trying to get at. But we still have that, still have the Trans Am, still have a couple old cars that can be much better race vehicles than an old pickup truck, and it's been done 1,000 times. I like pickup trucks that could do work, and we were still planning to do work with this, but it was lowered and a whole bunch of stuff, and the floor was too high, so you had to you're shaped like an L driving it, with your feet all the way forward. It would have been uncomfortable on long trips, that kind of thing. So Peg's truck came in, body was completely no good. We had a body on our 50s International, but the current setup was no good to me. So, what was a better decision than to mate the two? And we can save the parts that we had, the new parts and the fabricated parts, for another project down the road. I'm sure we'll have another one very soon. But did we really want another race truck, another racing vehicle type thing, street rod, where we could have a work truck for the channel that would be able to haul cars, work scrap, get lumber, get materials, get whatever we needed, be part of the channel as it grew, and work with it that way? I think that was the much better call, and we are bringing over parts of the 50s truck that I quite liked into this vehicle. So we're if you haven't watched the first video, we're putting the 50s vehicle cab on Peg's truck. That's what happened to Peg's truck. Peg's truck doesn't exist anymore, at least in the sense that it's the red cross-country Ford that people know by sight. That doesn't exist. The only thing that's visibly an indicator that it was zip ties and bias plies this truck is the 8-foot logger's box on the bed. I haven't touched anything in the bed. It's exactly the way that zip ties and bias plies dropped it off at. Still bent, still a whole bunch of stuff. The motor, all that stuff's in it. We'll get to that when we do the bed portion. But for right now, it's just sitting there, not doing anything. We're focusing right now on getting the 50s part of the truck to work in tandem with the 90s part of the truck. And the 90s part of the truck works pretty good. We had to do a couple things like brake lines and that kind of stuff. And the 50s truck part is starting to come together. We made the skeleton for the floor. We made the skeleton for the, well, I guess that's not part of the video. You guys haven't seen that yet, but it won't hurt the people that are in the live. We made the skeleton for the hood. We started grafting on the steel for the hood. It looks like a truck again, which is pretty wild. We still have to do back fenders, running boards, and work on one of the doors. But it's really coming together quite a lot. We still integrated the complete tilt hood front end to a certain degree because we're also running bumpers on this truck. So we'll have front and rear steel bumpers, and I'm thinking a steel front bush guard as well that will also tilt. Excuse me. Had Mexican tacos, so pretty good. But all of the like the bumpers and stuff aren't going to be in the next video, but the body steel is. So the next time you guys see this truck, it will be running and driving complete 50s front, Gap, Peg's truck, so the 80s or the loggers box, and it's all on the 1-ton F350 running gear. So we'll be able to pull a gooseneck if we want to. We'll be able to pull a fifth wheel if we want to. Any trailer from a bumper pull that we want to. All of that stuff. And technically, the current setup for the rear axle is a dually rear wheel. It has single rear wheel rims on it right now. But if we wanted to put duals on it, we would just need to extend the fenders basically on the back, which isn't rocket science. Very, very easy bed to work on. It's just flat steel. Pretty awesome. Anyway, we can easily do that and just add extensions down the road if we want to make it a dually. So we could technically have a 50s dually truck, which would be pretty darn sweet. Not gonna lie. So the next video you guys see on that truck, all the 50s gear is gonna be done, and I'll be playing around with it, same thing. And then there's gonna be a slight hiatus, not by video-wise for the truck. Are you gonna shorten the frame? That's exactly what I was gonna get into on what's going on with that. So what's gonna happen, the next video is gonna drop, episode 2. We're aiming for another roughly hour-long video, that kind of stuff. And I'm making it quality over quantity. Really, really quick before I answer that question. If you look at the old way we used to use the channel, it was like every 3 or 4 days of fabrication, welding, whatever we were doing went into one video. So, and we would just continue to do that. So if you look at the international series, there's a lot of good stuff in there, but no one's going to watch 54 episodes of me grafting steel together. And if you did, awesome. I'm really thankful that you guys did. But I know that it's not grown as a person and as a YouTuber, if that's what you want to call me. I don't know. Growing as basically a content fella, making videos and just playing around in a shop. If I want to watch a video, that's not what I want to watch. I want to watch something with a clear A to B or a clear start to finish. So instead of having every 3 days, it's just whatever I worked on, I throw at you guys. You guys get quicker updates that way, but it might be 10 videos of roughly the exact same thing before you see a slightly the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. Versus right now, the last video that you guys got was Peg's truck body mated together to driving the skeleton cab around in the backfield, running and driving truck. Pretty darn slick. The next video that you guys are going to get, 50s truck, very clearly a 50s truck, gap, bed, driving around, having some fun, doing that kind of stuff. By hiatus, I meant I'm going to ask you guys in that video what you guys think I should do with the gap between the bed. I have a couple ideas that I'm going to run by you guys right now. But basically, then we're going to have a hiatus in the build video because I'm actually filming another video style with that truck that we won't be fabricating on. It'll be a quicker turnaround, so maybe 2-3 weeks. Oh, excuse me. Maybe 2-3 weeks from filming to finish with that. And that will give us enough time to figure out what you guys want to see, what collectively everyone wants to see, and then obviously my input on what my plans are will come down to it. And then we'll start working on the bed portion of the truck, and that's basically going to dictate how things are going to work with it. So my plans with the gap, let's get into that right now. Plan number 1, we take the loggers box off and we put a flat deck. Then what is there? You have to ask yourself, how much of Peg's truck did we actually use? And at that point, it would just be the frame and the running gear and the engine and that kind of stuff. To me, I think it would suit it better if we used more of Peg's truck. That way people can obviously kind of correlate the two vehicles together. We want it to be Hi-Ho Stable Garage's truck, but it's still cool to say, hey, I seen that truck before. That was on Peg's video from driving it across the country. Pretty awesome. You get to know a little bit more heritage and a little bit more history on it that way. It's a shame you guys can't talk at the same time because running dry. But what I'm getting at is, personally, a flatbed, you already know you'll likely get more work done, especially with what I'm going to start to talk about right now. You'll likely get more work done with it, and it'll likely be more practical. But personally, I want to use the logger bed to some extent because it looks awesome. I think it's going to still work pretty good for what we need it to do. Maybe not as good, but still like 90% good, gooderist. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But the plan is for this truck is a service call X/expedition type vehicle. So it's going to do the work for Ohio Stable Garage, obviously at the very beginning. I think make it a dually, leave the loggers box on it, and have a drone box from a big rig. Oh, that would be cool. I know what you're talking about, like cabinets and stuff on the sides. I've thought about that, and I'll get into that in a second. But expedition type service truck rig, and I'm not talking just like a service truck for show, an actual dedicated service rig. So something that we can still do the work with on the channel. I can haul scrap, all that stuff with what I want, but that will also have a full set of mechanics tools in it, within reason, again, but a full set of mechanics tools in it. We want to have onboard welding of some kind. We can talk about how we can get there. But onboard welding of some kind, oxyacetylene torches, obviously, and basically a cherry picker style truck bed crane. It can be hydraulic, it can be mechanical, it really doesn't matter, but it has to do a couple things that we need it to do for the truck. How it actually does that, I'm not too concerned about, as long as it can do the job. So why are we building a service style truck? It's because we don't live at Ohio Stable Garage anymore, and we haven't for a while. It's been a little bit of time. My brother actually owns the property, and he's getting into more long-term life stuff. That's what people do. Awesome. 100%. 100% supportive of that and all that stuff, but we don't own the property. And it's going to come about a time that I think we have to move on from the barn itself. So we're structuring this vehicle that we can still do everything Hi-Ho Stable Garage related on the road mobile, but also in the short term, we can do everything. We can do a whole series of basically fixing vehicles for people. I'm not going to say clients because it's not going to be, that would mean that we're a business. You know what I mean? But fixing friends' vehicles on the side of the road when they need help and not their driveways and that kind of stuff. Basically just kind of get our feet wet and see if it's something that we want to do. And I want to take you guys along the way on it. And then down the road, maybe with all of that experience from working on friends' vehicles and all that stuff, we can make it a valid business. That'd be pretty cool, and film it along the way. Basically show you guys start to finish on the gripes and the calamities and the wins and the losses of trying to start up a small business from scratch, pretty much. So the service truck will be doing that for us, which will be pretty awesome. So for onboard welding, I'm thinking we have two methods to do it. We can get a dedicated gas-powered welder, dedicated diesel-powered welder, like a Lincoln or a Miller, whatever. Just basically a dedicated unit that has its own generator installed on it, completely separate from the truck. It just kind of sits in the bed. Fairly big unit. In our price range, we're likely looking at stuff from the 70s and the 90s. I don't think our price range allows anything from early 2000s moving forward. Be awesome. Currently learning the rope of my grandfather's small engine repair shop. So yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about then, Ricky. Exactly what I'm talking about. But starting from start to finish, pretty much. Or at least getting our feet going and it becoming stable. That's what I'm thinking on filming. I think it would be pretty cool, honestly. You guys get a little bit more of a window and how the struggle is. But that's kind of what I'm thinking on. an older style welder, and that's if we want a dedicated unit, and most likely he's being that old is likely going to only give us a stick welder, and that's completely fine. We can use our flux core welder for small stuff like exhaust pipe or whatever, sheet metal, if we're doing that type of thing on the road. And again, I know what you're going to say, it still needs power, and the little stick welder or the little flux core welder doesn't generate its own power, obviously. But if we got a welder from the 70s or the 90s in that range, whatever, it would have a generator already on it. We can just plug in, run our stuff. Be pretty good, honestly. Not bad to have in the back of the truck. Now, we don't own one of those currently. Fairly easy to get, especially the older units, but we don't own one currently. But what we do have access to is our flux core welder. We have a Tombstone Lincoln welder. I call it a tombstone because it kind of looks like a tombstone of 220 basically. But they're both AC, so they both need wall socket power, wall gas, as Peg would say. They both need that. But we also have a 10,000 watt generator. I'm not sure. I'd do a couple tests to see if the stick welder, you can run a MIG attachment on the old stick welder. I didn't know that. I'll have to look into that. That'd be pretty sweet. Because it has the power output. It just doesn't have the gun. It doesn't have the whip, basically. And I would like to start doing a little bit of aluminum, but I don't have enough practice with it to outsource that to family and friends. You know what I mean? So we're not going to get into that portion of it. I don't trust my aluminum welds that much for that type of thing. But I know what you're saying. I'll look into that, honestly. I didn't know that was a thing, that you can convert an old stick welder or add the attachments to it. But it makes sense because it's just a power supply at that point too. So I'll look into it. That might let us get the older welder cheaper and then just add the attachments into it down the road. But what I was getting at is you basically feed rolls and the gun. That makes sense. I've seen the dedicated power units and then we had a TIG and a MIG, so 3 separate boxes all together at my old shop. And they would all run off the one power unit. And that would be the part that plugs into the wall to the 3-phase, I believe. Yeah, to the 3-phase. Either way, we have a 10,000 watt generator. I'm not sure if it's strong enough to run full duty cycle on the Tombstone style Lincoln welder. If it is, that lets us get into that sets the bar even lower already. So we can run all 3 welders. We'll have to put them in waterproof enclosures when we're not using them. And obviously in the rain, it might become a little bit of an issue. But it lets us start so we can have that on the truck. Do you think you will buy the Mega Cab back someday? I'll answer that question right now. No. Mega Cab, in my opinion, is gone. This is how it is. I do miss it, but it's living another life. If it was just sold to someone that wants to drive it and putt around on it and was going to sell it to someone else pretty soon or down the road, I'd be a little bit different on it. But it went to a good hand, and it's going to work basically until the day it dies, which is awesome. I'm going to fix it along the way. He was very, very happy to have it. So I'm glad it went to a good home, pulling horses, having fun, pulling trailers. I think it's a good fit for the truck, and we're going to move on to other things is what it is. But I do think that was, we'll see how things go, but I do think that was the end of the 80s style pickup era for me. I think the Mega Cab was the last hurrah of that. I've owned 12 of them at this point, all in various degrees, but about 8 that were running and driving and that you could putt down the road on, have a good time with. I think I want to move on to 70s vehicles. 50s vehicles is, I think, something that we want to get into a lot more. 80s drivetrains, 90s drivetrains, 100%. I love those ones to pieces, reliable as dirt. But older bodies, I think that's a good combination that we can kind of start looking forward into to future stuff. So the International is a really good way to get our feet wet in what we have to do if we're going this far in. but down the road it might not be that far in. Do you still have the square body? Yes. Square body, it just isn't. We cleaned out the barn, but a lot of the barn vehicles are just moved to the other property. You guys can see the other property in some other videos. They're just kind of hanging out there. They're just sitting. So the square body, the El Camino, the F68, the Galaxy 500, they're still all there. Tractors, all that stuff is still all there. We're just letting them sit for right now because we don't know what we're going to do with them. I kind of want to do projects with them, but for right now, they're just sitting. Still okay. Square body's still around. It's just been around for a long time, just sitting. But anyway, we plan on doing that with the International. So as for the bed, kind of get back to that original question. Right now, the bed is 8 feet long, and we have about 13 feet, roughly, of space between the back of the cab and the back of the bed. Now, give or take about 4 inches of front and back movement currently on the bed, because when Peg put it on, wherever it laid, roughly eyeball a meter on the side to see if it was the wheel arches were over the tires, that's where he welded it. So, and it's welded to the frame. So it is what it is. But yeah, so we got to go through that and get it basically the right length on the backside, and that will dictate how much length we have on the front. I'm eyeballing and guesstimating. Give me a sec. I'm eyeballing and guesstimating that we have approximately 12 and a half feet of total bed space, of basically distance from the back of the cab to the back of the bed. So leaves me a couple options on what we can do. A, we can shorten the frame, have a single cab 8-foot bed. It's been done 1,000 times. Not rocket science to do, but right now we have a running driving truck. We cut it, we got to get in the drive shafts. I can't run the saddle tank, or at least we would have to heavily modify it if we wanted to run it. Run into a couple issues, and we plan actually on putting a 4-wheel drive system in this truck, and it's going to be a divorced MP205 along those lines. That extra frame space at the back is really, really nice for a mounting point that way. That way we don't have to run a married transfer case transmission. We can run a divorced. It will just be cooler. I like it. I've never done one. I want to do one. I think it would really add to the mystique of the truck, and like a Dana 60 up front. So right in that space behind the cab would be a really, really good spot for it. Lift kit and big tires. If we do 4-wheel drive, it will have to be lifted. Right now, we're building it in 2-wheel drive spec. But 4-wheel drive, it would have to be lifted about 3 inches suspension-wise. Not so much because of the body, because as we're building it, hopefully, in mind, I'm trying to keep 4-wheel drive as an option. So as we build it in certain spots, I'm clearancing things and making sure they're not in the way. And so far, I think we've achieved that goal. But I know from just online reading, a 1990, this is a 1991 F350 chassis. It has the twin I-beam up in front, 2-wheel drive. Are you keeping the tilt hood? Yes. Tilt hood is in the next video, 100%. It's already filmed. Tilt hood's already done on the truck. It's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet, I should say. We're right now at the stage of putting the body sheet steel on the hood skeleton, basically. But it's already tilting. It's already functioning. Tilt hood is 100% on the new truck. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, what I was saying, I don't know what I was saying. Got completely sidetracked. But I'll go back to what I remember. We were talking about the bed on the truck. So we have a certain distance. Are you going to do any upgrades to the engine? It's a 7.3 IDI. Not a lot of upgrades you can do to it that Peg hasn't already done. He's already turned the pump up all the way. As you guys can see from the other driving video, there was so much black smoke coming out of the thing. I like the tilt hood. Very nice access. 100%. Yeah, 100%. It's awesome. I liked it on the race truck build, and I'm definitely going to enjoy it day-to-day lifestyle-wise on the other truck. The only thing I can see is if we're parked really close to something, it tilts very far forward, but that's about it. What about a turbo? If we did a turbo, we're definitely gonna have to do head gaskets because right now, I think this question was asked before. Are we gonna do anything to the engine health wise? The engine right now seems to be healthy. He drove it with a lot of head gasket in a can and a lot of radiator stop leak. The radiator stop leak was so thick in it that it's basically like jelly. And the head gasket in a can is basically thick in the oil to a certain degree that's no longer 1540. But the actual engine itself seems to be okay. We might have to do a head gasket on it before we put the truck into service, but for right now it's fine. As for turbo, we're leaving enough room, but basically in the radiator setup that we can run an intercooler. That's part of the plan. So if we do a turbo, we will be adding intercooler, all that stuff. I'm fabricating, I'm making sure that roughly we'll be able to fit one. So hope that answers your question. We plan on adding performance parts, just maybe not right now. We kind of want the truck to be done before we do that. Would we do a factory turbo style? We have enough room for a factory turbo 100%. I made sure that we have a lot of distance on the basically from the air cleaner to the top of the hood, which is roughly about a foot, to tell you the honest truth. The radiator was where it leaked. I don't remember. No, it was. He had a lot of bar stop leak in it for the head gasket, and he thought in the video that the head gasket was leaking a little bit into the coolant because it was bubbling, basically, is what he was getting at. And you're going to do custom ranch hand style front bumper. Yes, it is going to have a 50s inspired front and rear bumper. So it's going to be like a 4-inch, maybe a 5-inch. I got to visually maybe get a couple cutoffs and visually see what size is going to look best on the truck. But the back, basically the design for the back bumper is going to be bent steel, bent tube, basically 4 or 5-inch, with the rear receiver built into the bumper. So we're building it very strong, and it's just going to be awesome. The front bumper is going to be basically the same design as the back, with a hinge section for a front grill guard that will come up and down. So it's going to be pretty, I think it's going to look pretty awesome. We're going to make them 50s inspired. So we're going to look at a lot of 50s trucks that had that style of bumper on them. And that's how we're going to build it. And the front bumper is going to be a winch bumper. So we're going to have a winch on it for obvious working reasons, which would be pretty slick. So back to the bed. Kind of jumping around, but I'm going to try to keep us always reeled back in. So back to the bed. As for the gap, we can A, shorten the truck, no more gap, done. We just have to repair the front of the bed that's dented in. B, which I'm kind of leaning towards, honestly, if it was me, which it is, and based off the type of stuff that we want to do with the truck, we want it to work for us. So the more bed space, the better, in my opinion. We plan on putting the welder unit basically right up against the back of the cab, and then toolboxes on the side, a truck bed crane that we're going to be building in-house on the back corner, and then what was the other thing? Slip tank, yes. I don't know if we're going to be building one, but there's a lot of cheaper ones on Marketplace. We want to have a third tank, roughly, I don't know how many liters that would be or how many gallons, but a lot. 100 gallons, let's say, something like that. Something we can have as a tertiary auxiliary tank for long distance driving, because we plan on using this truck quite a lot. Again, the second build point is like an expedition type vehicle, and that's why we will ultimately be doing 4-wheel drive down the road, and that's why we're putting winch bumpers and that kind of stuff. It's going to have its own service applications too, but expedition wise, I want to be able to get in this truck, drive to a cool spot, talk about that spot and show you guys what's going on with that, and then we drive away, whatever. when we do a long distance trip, whenever I can do YouTube full time, we are going to drive basically all the way to the West Coast and then all the way back. So it's going to be doing two things, expedition and service truck. But the main one is going to be service truck right now because financially that's the most viable option. And at the current state of High Hill Stable Garage, it's the best for a long-term solution of issues and problems that we're going to face going down the road. So I think that's a good idea, honestly. Get the service truck portion working first. So what I'm personally thinking bed-wise is extending the 8-foot section, so the 8-foot bed, to 12.5 feet, basically mimicking the steel and sheet pattern of the 8-foot bed and just extending it. That's pretty much it, honestly. Making the logger's box bigger. That involves cutting the front end off, making new rails underneath, because the rail system is diabolical on that thing. It's been on 27 different trucks, basically, and it's just steel upon steel upon steel. So cutting it back off to its virgin state, basically, making our own mounting system, and then welding that to the mounting system. I think it will work pretty slick, pretty good. And then we basically just copy the pattern of the bed, move it forward, and now we have 12.5 feet. So then with the onboard welder, with the slip tank, with the crane, with the truck bed toolboxes, we'll still roughly have 8 feet at the end of the day, because those cranes and those welders are massive things. Is the 6.9 Peg gave you the one out of the destroyed bullnose he did the video on. The 6.9 in the truck bed is from the shipping container that he has. There's a video that he goes through a shipping container, and I think there's a couple videos actually, there's a couple 24s, there's a couple 12 valves, there's a couple 7.3 IDIs, I think there's a Power Stroke, but then at the very, very far back end, there's one or two 6.9 IDIs. It's one of those two. I'm not exactly sure where those two came from, but they've been in there for quite a while. Ever since he got the C-Can, basically. And I think they were stored in another shipping container before that. So either way, that's where one of them came from. It's just from being stored in the C-Can. And then the other ZF5 is from Manitoba Slims, I believe. He picked that up at Manitoba Slims place before he came down. So yeah, two things. Pretty awesome. But I'm not sure if it runs. We were going to do a video on it, but when Peg came down, he just kind of wanted to see the East Coast. So I showed him the East Coast. And again, I didn't really have anything prepared. He came at an odd time for High Hill Stable Garage. I wish we were more prepared, but we weren't. But either way, it was a good time just hanging out with him and seeing the sights, not worrying about filming, all that stuff. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm not sure if the engine runs. Technically, we're sitting on 2 6.9s and 1 7.3 IDI right now. If I go the 4x4 route, am I thinking Kingpin 60? Cost-wise, Kingpin 60s are getting pretty far out there unless we find a truck that has one in it. But then you have to ask yourself, do you really want to cut up a driving truck with a Kingpin 60 in it? Because we all know what kind of truck has those under them. 60s and 70s Fords. Oh, geez. That went by too fast. Again, I can't see the comments once they're gone. I don't know why. I saw something about a fuel tank. So am I going to be making the fuel tank? No. I don't plan on it. I plan on buying one off a marketplace. Cost-wise and that kind of stuff, it's a lot quicker to just get one. But if it's such a custom fit, we'll cross that bridge down the road. But we want a slip tank, obviously, for extended range, obviously, for filling up equipment, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, but with all the equipment on this truck, we might only have 8 feet left. Yeah, if we have 12.5 feet. It might even be less than that. We might only have 6 feet. So on a work truck, it's good to have bed space, 100%. Like the 2016 aluminum bodied Ford, a 4x8 sheet of steel, I've already had to pick up 2 sheets of steel. No, sorry. 4 sheets of steel, and then how many plywoods, all that stuff with that truck, and it does the job, but the tailgate has to be down for a 4x8 sheet because it's a 6.5 foot bed. So with equipment and everything, I don't want to be running around with a tailgate down, just hauling a sheet of plywood. You know what I mean? So if we extend the bed, I can put all the equipment in and not have to take it in and out all the time if I'm putting material in. So we can also do a top rack if we want, that we can put steel tubing and C-channel and box tube and stock and a whole bunch of stuff if we're going to job site that can run the entire length of the truck. We could do that if we wanted to, but for the time being, I don't think we're going to. We're just going to do the extension of the bed. I think in my mind, it's the most practical use that doesn't make the truck overly dedicated as a service truck again, because we might do some expedition style things with it. So if we do, like Ricky said, to think of like a storage locker type thing that you would see on the back of semis, basically a big wall of cabinets. We could do like acetylene bottles right there at the back, because we're going to have an acetylene, we're going to have an oxygen, and we're going to have a CO2. Excuse me. Most likely, or a CO2 mix for the MIG welding. So 3 bottles of various size. I don't think we're going to have to go full size bottle, but obviously if you can go full size, you go full size is what it is. It's better economically. But those guys are big and they're tall. I think they're 4.5 feet. They might even be 5 feet tall. So they're big, honestly. A big round if you guys haven't seen them. And if you're having 3 of those, it takes up quite a lot of room. So that bed space could easily be used for bottle storage and then have a couple toolboxes. Do you still have Old Blue? We covered that already, but quickly, no. Old Blue, we sold him off. He's down driving, hauling horses now, different owner. He loves it. I'm happy he loves it. You're going to do another... Am I going to do onboard air? Yes, I completely forgot about onboard air, but yes, we are going to. I have the compressor for it already, and it's electric compressor to, I believe it's a old style 1-cylinder upright style engine. Not like, it won't drive a boatload of CFM. It's not a twin screw. It's nothing like that. But I plan on making a mini series basically on retrofitting a small engine to it with an overrunning clutch, that kind of stuff, to run the compressor and making it so then it runs how it should. But the air pig itself and the compressor itself we already have. We just got to get the outboard engine and then the other associated accoutrements to make it run. But that will be our on-air setup, but it's roughly the size of like a mini fridge. So it shouldn't take up a lot of room, but it does take up room. Good spot for the side crane, like shipping crate. Yeah. So the side crane, if you're thinking of the space there, I think you're thinking too big for the crane. And let me explain. The reason the crane is a double-edged sword. Obviously, if you have a big crane, so like a bigger hydraulic unit that folds up behind the bed of the cab with maybe outriggers or maybe not, that can go and pick stuff up, and what would that be, like maybe 1,500 pounds at 10 feet or something like that, or maybe even 2,500 pounds at 10 feet. Decent sized crane, decent sized workload. You can get a lot of stuff done with that. You can cherry pick engines out of skidders, that kind of thing. Pretty good. Functionality wise, I don't think you can beat that. But what are requirements for the truck bed crane is basically to be able to take out the equipment from the bed and put it to the ground. Pick up an engine or an axle, that kind of stuff, off the ground and put it into the bed. That's the sweep of our engine crane. That's basically all we really need it to do, is move the heavy stuff in and out of the bed. So the truck onboard welder has to be able to be moved in and out of the bed with the crane. The air compressor, the slip tank, that type of thing. The toolboxes I can like to take off by hand. But the big stuff has to be able to come in and out with the crane. So that's what I kind of meant earlier on. We can do hydraulic. Yeah, you know what I mean. We can do hydraulic, but it might be overkill for what we need. Or we can do manual or mechanic, or we can do hydraulic or mechanical, like a mechanical over hydraulic, or just a mechanical style with like pulleys and whatever, just to move it. I think the biggest load is going to be like an onboard welder because of the generator, the onboard engine, all that stuff, and then the frame that it's in. But is that going to be more than 2,000 pounds? It's hard to say. And I don't think we got to do 2,000 pounds at 10 feet. We can likely skinny that up quite a lot. So the crane itself doesn't have to be very big. When in my mind, I'm thinking like a Princess Auto style crane, just beefed up. So either we build it from scratch, which I'm kind of leaning towards, or we retrofit a Princess Auto crane to be able to hold the weight requirements. But the reason I said it's a double-edged sword, after a certain capacity, legality wise, the lines start to become blurred on if you can have that on a commercial vehicle or not. Private vehicle, they're not going to bother you, but because we're going to be filming stuff and we're going to be filming family and friends, you know what I mean? We can't use, we have to make sure that the crane doesn't fall into a commercial status where you can get flagged by DOT and all that stuff. Basically, if it can lift a lot, I would have to look at what the requirement is that we have to be under for my province. But if you make it too big, then it has to be yearly inspected, a whole bunch of stuff. It's its own thing. But then also insurances wise, even if you're not using it for commercial, even if it's just a personal use vehicle altogether, if you have the crane on it, it might eat our entire cost or our entire profit margin for doing this side project. So we have to be wary of that. Could try to fit onboard air in the gap in a couple toolboxes. Yeah, honestly, it's either put all the equipment that I was talking about in the gap, or we extend the bed. I'm thinking extend the bed because roughly it makes the whole truck look more complete than having the tool bed and the crane and all that stuff right there ready to rock and roll. It's just if we do when we do the expedition part, I should say when it meets that point in its life, I want to be able to use the crane, cherry pick the tool beds and all the service truck stuff off of it, and build the necessary gear that we needed to do, again, detachable, for the expedition style stuff. And I can get into that some other time. But it's going to be a while for that. Right now, we're building it as the service truck. But that's kind of why I'm leaning more towards this extending the bed. But that's kind of what we're getting at. Either way, it has to hold all that stuff. But the gap, we might use something else for the gap, or we might extend the bed. As I said, that's kind of why I said at the very beginning, functionality wise, it would likely be better just to add a service deck, get rid of the luggage box altogether, add a service deck, put all the gear on the service deck, and then you can just yank the service stuff off the deck and you're good to go. But I kind of want to keep the logger's bed because it's just cool in general. One sec, my notes just logged me out here for a second, fellas. That's the problem with laptops and stuff. Oh, do I not know my password? Guess I don't. Oh, I see what the problem is. Wrong password. But either way, so yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff actually on this, which is awesome. That's what we wanted to do. So that's basically the plan with the international service truck. That's what we plan on doing roughly with the bed. We can either fill the gap up with stuff, make its own system for holding toolboxes and welders and all that stuff, and then we just have the logger's bed moving back. But I kind of want to extend the logger's bed all the way to the front. That way, if you remove all the service truck stuff, it just looks like a 1-ton pickup, basically extra long style, but still like a 1-ton pickup. And we can add extra tires and a whole bunch of stuff to it. Yeah, that's basically the plan with that. And then after we do the bed, we have to do the glass and figure that kind of stuff out. And then instrumentation, lights, all that stuff. But all that stuff's just gonna kind of flow in. Once we get the main part of the truck done, the rest of it will be relatively easy. so to speak, which would be pretty awesome. So anyway, that's the International. That's going on with Peg's truck. The body, it will go to scrap, like Peg's original truck. It will go to scrap. There's not anything worth saving off of it, is what it is. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We're going to keep the dash for right now. I got plans for the dash down the road, but for right now, the dash is just going to be a wall hanger. We'll put that up when we're done the International truck, kind of as a hurrah. We'll put it up on the wall, which would be pretty awesome. All right. So, what is I'll answer this question first. Hard to argue against a large bed. Never enough room. 100%, especially when we're filling it with gear on the front half of it. Again, we have a service we're going to have a slip tank. We're going to have toolboxes. Quite a lot, because we need a lot of mechanics tools to do service calls with, or family and friends with. We're going to have air compressor, truck bed crane, vise, oxyacetylene, oxygen, or oxyacetylene, CO2 mix, whole bunch of stuff, and it's all going to take up quite a lot of room. So if we have more bed, then we might still have 8 feet or close to it at the end of the day, especially with the tailgate down, but close enough to 8 feet before the tailgate. Sorry I can't make the live. I'm busy tonight. It's okay there, Evan. I appreciate it. You usually make all of them, so it's all good. Again, I don't plan these lives out. I usually just kind of, here you go. Whoever gets to see them gets to see them. It is what it is. But I'm glad everyone that can come has come, which is awesome. But either way, we'll move on to some other things. Is Ohio Stable Garage going to go to any events this year? I'm going to say no. We might go to events unofficially, so without notifying anyone, basically. More so as a personal thing, but if we film it, we'll film it and you'll see the video. But we're not going to commit to any events as of right now. I kind of want to focus on the International build, get that done, and then build off from there. Kind of use it as a springboard, start the channel back up, really ramp back up to where we should be. So event-wise, I'm going to say no, not for 2024. We're not planning on doing anything, and we likely won't make any appearances anywhere. So I'm also going to include like meetups. I know you guys wanted to do meetups this year, and I said we were going to, but that was also before the hiatus. Are we going to do meetups from now to Christmas, basically, or now to the new year? I can't foresee it. Vehicle season, car season is starting to slow down, and then very, very soon it will be done all together, and you'll only have the freaks out like me driving old stuff and all that cool jazz in the wintertime. So we can still do like a coffee meetup maybe, but as for like everyone shows up with their old cool hot rods and we all just talk for 10 hours out in a parking lot, I don't think that's going to be able to go down in -20. It is what it is. It might have to wait till spring, but I would rather hit the ground running with a whole bunch of stuff that can entertain you guys, and I can show you guys a whole bunch of stuff. I want to be a little bit more prepared for it when we do that, so I wouldn't hold out hope for 2024, but it is what it is. And as for events, I wouldn't hold out hope for 2024, but maybe down the road, maybe I'll reevaluate it if there's something really cool that comes up that it's like, hey, I think it would be a really good shot for us all to go meet up at. But for right now, I'm going to say no to both, if that answers that question. That kind of brings us into what's the channel plan for the rest of 2024. Make sure the International is done. Basically, that's the main goal for the channel right now. And it's likely going to be the main goal until the International is done. I'm kind of sick of building that truck. By sick of it, I mean like building it and then stopping, doing another project, coming back to it, getting more done, and then stopping it, all that stuff. It's been in the barn for too long. I don't like that. We have to finish it, get it done in the state that we want, but make sure it's done right this time, that I don't have to go back and redo anything. Or at least if I'm redoing it, it has to be a complete upgrade from before, not just me fixing issues that I've personally let slide just to get a video out or progress the project, because eventually if you do that too much, you end up with a subpar product at the end of the day. I don't want a subpar product. I want a good product. I want it to be good. I want it to look good. I want it to work good. So we're doing it once and we're going from there. So I'm focusing on the international. Again, our current plan with the amount of current workload that I have outside of YouTube, it's gonna likely be, I want to say February or March, that the majority of the truck will be complete. We're not going to make the same mistake of painting it at all in the wintertime. We're not going to do that. It is what it is. So painting it and all that stuff is going to have to wait down the road until basically it warms up again. But as for making it a fully functional truck, around that portion, and then it's likely going to end up sitting in the barn. But we might still drive it just unpainted, unfinished. It is what it is. We'll go from there. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but that's roughly where I'm going to end up. And that's not including the welders. That's not including all that kind of stuff added onto it. But say we do the 12.5-foot bed, that'll be the 12.5-foot bed, the 50s truck, all the accoutrements to make it run, so signal lights, brake lights, anything extra that we want to add on to it, pretty much. That's roughly what we're going for. So yeah, that takes us a little bit past 2024. Short videos, I'm still treating them. Basically, if you want a little sneak peek here and there, I throw out a short video, or is this something funny or whatever. I wouldn't pay too much attention to the short videos, to tell you the honest truth, but it is what it is. It grows the channel good, so I put those out. But most of my effort and quality and quantity and all that stuff working on the actual vehicle and the channel, it tends to go into the longer stuff. That's where my heart and soul is, more or less. So you'll get more out of those watching that than the short videos. So we already talked about that. I talked a little bit about the filming the small business startup, but I want to touch on that again. The small business startup, I mean, from like, I have no customers, no one knows us. I can use a little bit of personal connections, but no one knows us. Can we make a valid business or a valid friends and family working on stuff type thing from start to finish and make it profitable, basically? That way, if you guys want to do the same thing, it shouldn't matter if it's a 50s truck or if it's a 2024 F-150 or whatever. Follow the same recipe, follow the same work ethic, and we should be able to meet at the same location with the same amount of time. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I'm aiming for likely evenings and weekends, maybe a 24 or a 12-hour service window. We'll see. We'll likely try both, see which one we like, because we still have to be able to work on High-O Stable Garage stuff, but this is going to help fund basically the projects going forward and add us a little bit more filming, because that's another thing too. I want the filming of this series to have a good clear A and B point, a good clear start and finish on each video. First video was 2 trucks come together, running and driving. Second video is making it look like a 50s truck sheet metal wise. Third video is going to be whatever we do with the bed, minus that little hiatus video that I talked about earlier. Every video has a clear and concise A and B point, start and finish point. So that's why the progression is quite far. It's past 2024. That way I'm not putting out 60 videos, basically. You absolutely can, Colt. My grandfather retired and got bored, so he reopened his shop. He's busy. Yeah, busy through word of mouth. If you're good and you're skilled and you take quality and you want to actually, you care about your name and your personal name and the name of the company that you're working for, you're going to get work. That's just how it is. If you're good, you're dependable, you're going to get work. I'm not afraid of that aspect. I'm more so afraid of getting too much work and not pricing it properly. Yeah, but we're going to use it to film. basically, because what I'm getting at is it leads into this. The amount of episodes for this entire build series, and I mean start to finish, is maybe only between 4 and 6 videos, which isn't a lot, to tell you the honest truth. The Mega Cab might have had that, and it was within 3 months. And we're talking between, when did we start? August. So August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. Geez, I'm bad at math. Gotta use my fingers. But even if we go into April, that's 8 months. Yeah, for 5 or 6 videos. It's not doable for YouTube. So what we plan on doing is we're gonna have these videos, basically, they're gonna be longer apart, but they're gonna have a more clear and concise start and finish. Oh, geez, I hit something on the chair. There we go. So in between, we're going to have other videos. They're not going to be so much filler videos, but they're going to be videos just keep the channel alive. We have to until this truck's done. And then we can do stuff with the truck that will be more entertaining. But until then, we have to get a little bit creative. You guys will see I got a couple things lined up that we'll be doing. And it's basically so that I don't have to cut the quality of the A and B point from the videos, and I can take my time on the bigger stuff. Makes it more entertaining down the road, more watchable for new audiences to kind of get into. I'm trying to treat this more as a business, so it's a better business move. It's just we have to fill the gaps up with something. So I'm not going to throw videos that way that don't make a lot of sense. I'm not going to do that. But what I'm getting at is, so then we don't have to, what's the word I'm looking for? Compromise our exact vision per episode on what we want to do for the international series with Peg's truck and my truck put together. That way we can basically work with what we got and make sure that it's the right video that we want put out. So we don't have to worry about the algorithm and YouTube and that kind of stuff if we're actually trying to grow it into a business, which we are. So in order to keep the channel alive, we got to do certain things. Either way, I'm going to keep them entertaining, but that's what I'm trying to say. The distance between the videos, we want to keep long. Quality speaks for itself. Clients are begging for guys. Kind of shocks me that becoming rare nowadays. You'll be fine. That's the way I think, honestly. As long as we're honorable in what we do, and we... Are you named after the Fall Guy Colt Servers? No. My dad named me after a couple things. Colt 45, whiskey, Colt, like the gun manufacturer, and Colt baby horse. Those 3 combined. That's exactly what my name came from. Honesty is key. Yeah, 100%. And you know what's going to be cool? Part of the business model for family and friends, likely for the first year, telling you the honest truth. But part of the business model is filming the interaction, working on the vehicle, whatever, and then leaving. So if the client wants to, or family and friend wants to see what exactly you did to their vehicle work-wise, they'll be able to see it. It's going to be on film. I think that's a very good thing to have. And I'll be able to decide what and where I want to work on things, what's entertaining for you guys. But at the very beginning, we're just going to try to get our name out there, try it, see how things work. I'm quite confident it's going to work out fine, is what it is. So yeah, that's basically the plan on that. So last thing I'll talk about for the international is I was talking about like an expedition style rig, and I touched a little bit on it. But by expedition, I mean I recently did a Newfoundland trip. Awesome. Me and the fiance, we toured around Newfoundland in Grossmore National Park. Did a lot of hiking, did a lot of sightseeing. It was awesome. But there was one point that we went to Tablelands. It was a different hike, basically. Really cool spot. But there was a group of, I want to say 1980s Toyota Land Cruiser. And they were on Newfoundland for about a month, traveling around just in their Toyota Land Cruisers and just having a good time. And it said like Expedition Newfoundland on the side of it. It was pretty awesome. Overlanding, basically, is what they had. I think that would be pretty cool to do at the International, to tell you the honest truth. Load it up with a bunch of gear and maybe drive all over Quebec, maybe head all the way out west, and then come back and just sightsee the entire time. Maybe spend 2, 3 months out doing it, filming as we go, going and see events and a whole bunch of stuff all in the back of the old International. I think that would be pretty sweet, to tell you the honest truth. The best way I could describe it is picture something kind of like Truckhouse Life. I think a lot of you guys likely have seen that. If you're into older Fords, he runs like a 90s Power Stroke, and he built basically it's like a log cabin on the back of it, and that's what he does. He'll go to Alaska, to Texas, and do coast to coast, whole bunch of stuff, and just travel in it. Yeah, Tim's truck is sick. Yeah, 100%. 100%. But that's kind of what I'm getting at. It would be pretty cool. It won't be a regular thing on the channel because obviously it's unsustainable. He has an odd business model, but it works for him. That's awesome. But for me, it's unsustainable to do stuff like that. But if we can make it sustainable for 2 or 3 months, just have some fun and then come back, film along the way, I think that would be pretty awesome, to tell you the honest truth. So make sure that when we build the truck, we build it with that in mind, that we could do expedition style thing, either with a truck bed camper of some type or tent camper or whatever. Depends on what season we want to do it in, a whole bunch of stuff. But I think it would be pretty darn slick, to tell you the honest truth. Future projects. So we have the F68, we have the Galaxy 500, El Camino, and the Square Body. So I'm going to tell you right now, El Camino and the Square Body, not sure what's going to happen with those. Is what it is. I'm not going to give any updates on them and any false hopes. I'm not sure what's going to happen with those at all. Galaxy 500 is my grandfather's old car. We'll likely do something with it. I'm not sure what, because it's quite a substantial project. And by substantial, I'm talking complete frame replacement, body work, a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm not entirely sure what we want to do. We have a complete frame for it, but I'm not sure if we want to get into something that crazy right now, because we're dedicating likely 2.5 to 3 months on that project just to get it running and driving under its own power, road legal wise. It won't take a lot to get it running and driving under its own power right now. We already got it running under its own power, but running and driving, I would say 2 or 3 months of solid work. That leaves the F68 for current vehicles in the roster. We want to do that one right. We want it to be safe, and we want it to be basically so that my mom can drive it around, have some fun with it. So chassis swap is not in the question. Is that the right way to say that? Chassis swap is an option, but the whole truck is technically original minus some stuff to make it running, like an aluminum radiator and maybe a water pump and fuel pump and all that kind of stuff. But the rest of the truck is all original sheet metal. I don't know if we really want to cut that up for a chassis swap because it has original frame, drivetrain, all that stuff in it. Be a really cool project to get into after, basically. Be a really cool project to start with the International service truck doing a lot of the work on house, on scene. I think that would be pretty cool. But a big one is actually we have a car hauler trailer. It's actually a trailer meant to haul tractors with. It's just been sitting for a long time. We plan on putting new axles under that and retrofitting it and modernizing it. And then basically it will be the trailer that does a lot of the projects for us going down the road. So that's likely more so in the future, is a trailer style project. We haven't done one on the channel. I think it will be really handy. Basically the goal for the channel right now is make stuff that functions and does the job it's supposed to. Not so much toys, but working vehicles that we can make money if we need to, but can serve us a really big purpose. So trailers, service truck, that type of thing. That's kind of the future that we're getting at. A little bit out of the normal from going to events and a whole bunch of stuff that we normally did. But I think if we focus a little bit more on that stuff right now, get it to where we want it to be, That way we can enjoy a lot of stuff going forward down the road, and we'll have staple cornerstone things for the channel: a good trailer, a good service truck, a good work truck, that type of thing. I think that's a really good way to go about it. All right, so unless there's other questions, I only got to touch base on one more thing. I put it all as one thing. So Patreon, merchandise, channel subscriptions, and website. Had a couple guys ask about these before. I touched base on it on the last live a long time ago. Website, I'm slowly working on. Slowly. Again, that was all this stuff was during the hiatus. I never did. I just kind of let it sit on the back burner. It is what it is. But the website we're working on. Channel subscriptions is about, from what I can gather, the same as Patreon. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's basically me opening up the door for you guys to give me money. I guess is what it is. But to progress the channel forward, it seems like a good idea. I'm not forcing anyone to do it, and I'm never going to. But a lot of people wanted the option to be there, and financially it makes sense because YouTube pays nothing. It is what it is. But I will only be doing one. It'll either, if I do channel subscription, it won't be Patreon, and if I do Patreon, it won't be channel subscription, but I plan on doing one of the two, basically. And it will be stuff that you don't see on the channel a lot, because again, it'll be basically for people that really want to know the nitty gritty and the daily in and out of what's going on. So instead of doing, we're focusing on quality, so a clear A and B point, but I'm still filming everything in between. We might be able to break up that video into 3 or 4 segments and get it out to you guys faster and just put it on the Patreon. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I don't know exactly what to put on there, but I think that's a good way to go about it. At least it gives you guys something that you would be able to see, and it wouldn't be very much, like $3 a month or something. I don't know. Enough to warrant me doing it, but enough that you guys are still getting something out of it, because I don't want to take from you guys. Again, you guys already give enough. You guys are watching me ramble around at my time. It's 10:30 at night, and you guys are listening to me. So thanks 100% just for that. I don't want to take anything more from you guys that you guys are already giving. So it is what it is. Big thank you, 100%. And thank you guys for still being there when we came back. Again, I'm seeing a lot of faces that I remember seeing at the beginning of summer, and that's awesome. 100% that you guys still stayed there. And tell you honest truth, I still saw a lot of comments from those fellas and from basically the same people that watched our stuff at the beginning of summer before we took our hiatus, that all throughout the summer were asking questions of when you coming back, or, oh, we miss you, a whole bunch of stuff. It was awesome. Happy to see you back. 100%. Me too. Glad to be back. Glad to be back 100%. And yeah, the last one was merchandise. Merchandise, it's just going to be, I'm trying to figure out some things. I tried a small run locally of flags. I have maybe 5 or 6 left. And those will be sold through the website when I get that kind of figured out a little bit better. That's been almost a year that I've been sitting on that, so don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath at all. But for the time being, we might look into something like a Teespring, whatever, until we can get a backlog of merchandise, because kind of what I have to do right now is buy, say I want extra large, I have to buy extra large, and then that's it. That's all I got. So if you're a small, you're never going to fit, is what it is. I won't have it. Definitely interested as merch as well as whatever it happens. 100%. Appreciate it, Ricky, as always. 100%. I don't think you got to know that I was talking about basically you and a couple other fellas. So it is what it is. So big thank you. I see your guys' faces all the time. It's awesome. 100%. I appreciate the support. But yeah, merchandise is one of those things. I'm like a fish out of water when it comes to like the Patreon, the channel subscription, and the merchandise. I have no idea what I'm doing on any of that. I'm just a fella in front of a camera that right now rambles and films wacky projects and just what I was doing in the barn when I was younger. Well, I guess I'm still young, but younger than I am now. So just playing around. So all the actual making this dream type scenario become a profitable business to kind of get into. I appreciate it 100%. Not a lot of us on the East Coast. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm getting at. Trying to convert it into a valid business that I can continue to do this for years to come. Doing it just as a hobby, if I did it just as a hobby, things will slow down. But if I can convert it into a business that financially can support me, my family, and future endeavors, then I can warrant putting time into it. And ultimately, that's what I want to do. So, if how we have to get there is $3 subscriptions and $10 or $15 t-shirts, then we might have to cross that bridge, is what it is. So yeah, unless there's any other questions, I basically covered everything I wanted to say. It's mostly me. I didn't want to make a dedicated video on where I've been. I'm sure that there's a lot of questions on where I've been, but I think everyone that wanted to know the answer to that question likely is here or likely will watch this live down the road. So I'm not overly concerned. I don't have to do that for you guys. And then just some unanswered questions of like, where's Old Blue? All that stuff. So yeah, I think that's going to be it. I think we're going to wrap it up. I appreciate every last one of you that came down, say hello, ask a few questions, and listen to a fellow ramble inside a hotel room. But have a good night. For anyone that's on the East Coast, again, it's like 10:30-ish. But anyone that's on the West Coast, you're likely just getting off supper time. So enjoy your meal. Have a good night. Have a good evening. I appreciate it. I'll catch you guys in the next one really, really soon. See you guys.